Well, we are glad tonight to have with us Amanda Baker, and you'll be meeting her if you haven't already this evening. The Lord's given her a burden for the country of England, and that's where she's on deputation right now to head to. And so, Amanda, we're glad to have you with us tonight, and I'll turn the service over to you at this time.
It is truly a blessing to be with you this evening. I want to say thank you for your kind hospitality. It's always nice to know that you can roll into a parking lot around 10:30 at night. Somebody's going to open the door for you. You're not going to sleep in your car. I was up in Charleston, West Virginia yesterday at a prayer rally for a God Bless America crusade, and just introducing myself to some pastors there. And the Lord has just been truly blessing the ministry of deputation. I am sent out of Tabernacle Baptist Church in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I'm serving with Baptist World Mission. And my desire is to go to the field of England, serve alongside church planters, and see the cause of Christ advanced and see people added to his kingdom, because that's what we're commanded to do. And the Lord's given me an opportunity to do that in the country of England. I'll give you a little background on how I got to this point. I'll mention this in the video, but I was called to missions as a teenager. Some people ask, how did you get from this point to this point? Well, called to missions as a teenager, and the Lord directed me through various opportunities and things. I graduated from Bob Jones, got a master's degree at Tabernacle in Virginia Beach, and it was at that time that the Lord began to kind of ruffle the feathers a little bit, tug on the carpet, and start looking at going out and doing this full-time missions that He'd called me to do. So I traveled to England in 2013 and ministered there with a missionary just west of London. Got to know the people a little bit, the culture, and then came home, and I was still teaching in a Christian school all the while. And so I came home and kept teaching, but started the process of applying to Mission Board, and was appointed by Baptist World in October of 2013. I had my first meeting on deputation in January of 2014. I continued teaching by the request of my administrator. I told him when I was appointed, I said, look, I'll quit at the end of the year. He says, please don't give me one more year to find a teacher, and if you'll stay, then I'll let you go anytime you need to, and we'll just fill the spot as needed. So you take your meetings. And so I was able to continue on part-time deputation, working full-time through May of this past year. So in July, I was able to start full-time traveling on deputation. You say, what happened to June? Well, I spent it in England. And so the Lord allowed me to go back and visit with some folks again in Brampton, where I went the first time, and then to minister alongside the family that I believe the Lord's called me to work with. I'll share some more about that with you here in a few minutes, but I want to show you the presentation here. Many folks ask, before I do that, the big question for deputation missionaries is, so where are you, how far along, that kind of thing. Well, right now the percentage is 52, just over 52.5%, and so the Lord's providing, and Lord willing, that number goes up this month. There's lots of business meetings and things going on this month for meetings that I've had through the fall. Just thankful for what the Lord's doing, providing meetings, and what He's doing in my life as I minister to churches just like yours all along the road. So if we have the video, then I'll present the ministry to you that way, and then I'll come back and share with you some specifics about what I believe the Lord's calling me to do specifically in the city of Peterborough. Green rolling hills, majestic coastlines, beautiful ancient castles, and the prestigious royal family. England is an amazing land full of varied geography, distinct architecture, and a vast history. The nation of England is part of the United Kingdom, including Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. England is approximately the same size as the state of Alabama, yet it contains almost 84% of the population of the United Kingdom. A typical day in England includes a rain shower, many darkened skies from the looming clouds. Some might say the spiritual future of England mirrors the weather itself. Dark, dreary,
and even depressing.
Religion is a thing of ritual.
Religion is a thing of
where
ritual,
where
many people claim Christianity
but
in
the
name.
state churches do
But the
not
state
reflect
churches
a
do
people
not
dedicated
reflect
to
a
their
people
religion.
dedicated to their religion.
The state churches,
The state
although they are
churches,
beautiful
although
buildings,
they are beautiful
do not
buildings,
reflect the light
do
of
not
the glorious
reflect the
gospel.
light of the glorious gospel.
This has not always been the case.
This has
in
not
England.
always been the case
For a
in
long
England.
time,
For a long
the nation
time,
was sending many
the nation
of
was
the
sending
greatest
many of the
missionaries in
greatest
history to share the
missionaries in
gospel.
history to share the gospel.
People like William Carey,
Hudson
Gladys
Taylor,
Aylward,
and
among
Gladys
others.
Aylward, among others.
There have been Englishmen like
There have
Thomas
been Englishmen
Cranmer,
like Thomas
Nicholas
Cranmer,
Ridley,
Nicholas
Hugh
Ridley,
Latimer,
and
who
Hugh
gave their
Latimer,
lives as
who gave their
martyrs
lives as martyrs in their own land to stand for truth against a wicked monarchy of their day.
God has been at work in
God
this
has
nation,
been at work in
and
this
he is
nation,
still at work
and He
today.
is still at work today.
Although it seems
as if the gospel has been rejected by the present day English culture, the gospel has more than enough power to overcome the spiritual apathy and darkness of this land.
My name is Amanda Baker.
My name is
and the
Amanda
Lord has
Baker,
prepared
and the
me
Lord
and
has
called
prepared
me
me and
for such a
called
time
me
as
for
this,
such a time
to
as
share the
this
gospel in
to share the
England,
gospel in
a land that
England,
so greatly
a land
needs
that
it.
so greatly
I am being
needs it.
sent out by
I am being
Tabernacle
sent out by
Baptist Church in
Tabernacle
Virginia
Baptist
Beach,
Church in
Virginia,
Virginia Beach, Virginia, under the leadership of Dr. James W.
and I'm
Baker,
serving with Baptist
and I'm
World
serving
Mission.
with Baptist World Mission.
I was saved on
I
May
was
7th,
saved on May 7th,
1989,
1989, when I responded to an invitation during a Sunday evening church
My
service.
mother opened the Bible.
My
and
mother
showed me
opened the
how to be
Bible and
saved,
showed
and
me how to be
accepted the
saved,
free
and I
gift of
accepted the
salvation
free
that
gift
night.
of salvation that
I
night.
answered the call to serve
I
the
answered
Lord
the
in
call to
missions as a
serve the Lord in
teenager.
missions as a
The
teenager.
Lord has provided me
The Lord
with
has provided me with multiple
opportunities
opportunities to serve Him
through
in
short-term
missions
mission
through
trips as a
short-term mission
teenager,
trips as a
college
teenager,
student, and young
college
adult.
student, and young
I
adult.
received a bachelor of
I
science
received a
degree in
bachelor of
English
science degree in
education
English
2006
education in
from Bob Jones
2006
University,
from Bob Jones
and began
University
teaching in a
and
Christian
began
school
teaching in a
immediately
Christian
after
school
graduation.
immediately after graduation.
Although the Lord did not send
Although
me
the
to a
Lord did
foreign
not
field
send me
right
to a
away,
foreign field right
He made it
away,
evident that my
He made it
students were
evident that my
mission field.
students were my mission
While
field.
teaching in the Christian
While
school,
teaching in the
I was
Christian
able to
school,
complete a
I was
master's
able to
degree in
complete a
counseling
master's degree in
at Tabernacle
counseling
Baptist
at
Bible
Tabernacle
College and
Baptist
Seminary.
Bible College and
The Lord
Seminary.
has used these
The
years
Lord
of
has used
ministry
these
to
years
prepare
of
me
ministry to prepare me for
England.
His calling me to England.
After graduating from
Tabernacle, I began to seek the Lord concerning His will for me in the area of foreign missions.
As I prayed about where
I should serve, the Lord began burdening my heart for the people of England in a way that only He
The
can
Lord
do.
has allowed me to
The Lord has allowed me to visit the country on two separate survey trips, each of which has increased the burden that He gave me for England prior to my
My
visits.
calling to England has
My calling to
clearly
England
come
has
from the Lord
clearly
and been
come from the
confirmed
Lord
by
and
Him,
been
for which I am
confirmed by
so
Him, for
thankful.
which I am so
During
thankful.
these trips, the Lord
During these trips, the Lord has allowed my path to cross with other missionaries who are working within the country. I have had the chance to work in various ministries in different parts of the country. Some of the areas of ministry that I have participated in are children's ministries, music, ladies' meetings, camp ministry, Bible Institute classes, door-to-door visitation, and mass literature distribution, just to name a few.
These are just some of the ways
that I can aid a church planting team of missionaries on the field to help establish Bible-believing Baptist churches throughout the country. The Lord has used these opportunities to direct me as I prepare for the ministry He has for me in England.
Gaining entrance into the country on a religious worker's visa is something for which I am daily asking the Lord's guidance. The
United Kingdom's government requires that I be sponsored by an established ministry within the
This
UK.
sponsor ministry must have the proper recognition from the government to take responsibility
for me as a migrant worker within the country.
Please pray with me that the Lord will direct me in this process as the time nears for me to leave for the field.
The time I have spent on the field has only increased my burden and desire to be there on a permanent basis. Please pray that the Lord will get me to the field as soon as possible so that I can be part of a church planting team in England that is evangelizing the lost, edifying the saints, and establishing Bible-believing Baptist churches for the cause of Christ and for His glory.
We are thrilled to recommend to you for your church's missionary support Amanda Baker. She came to us here in August of 2006 when she became our high school English teacher. Amanda has faithfully served the Lord in all sorts of ministries here at Tabernacle, including Vacation Bible School, the church choir, and special music, a single Sunday school class, as well as all sorts of ministries where she has given herself to the work of the ministry. That'll not change when she goes to the mission field. In fact, while she's been here, she's gone on her own self-financed trips to Cambodia, Puerto Rico, Haiti, Mexico, Canada, and several stateside works. She truly has a heart for missions, and God is going to use this young lady in a great way. I trust that you'll seriously consider adding her to your church missions
Although
family.
England has had the truth and has even been a source of sending missionaries across the globe, there are still so many that have not heard the truth. Pray for me as I make this transition through deputation to minister in England. The Lord has opened the doors wide for our team to further the gospel among the people of England. Will you partner with me in prayer that as the Lord has called me and prepared me for this work, that He will use me to reach the lost at such a time as this?
Recently been studying, and as I've been able to be home for a couple of weeks at Tabernacle over the holidays, our Sunday school class has been studying the story of Esther. And I love the fact that the Lord used an unlikely person in an unlikely place, in a very unlikely way, to accomplish His goal. And I believe that He wants to do that with each one of us. I feel as though I'm an unlikely person to be used, but if the Lord wants us to go, as we sang, "Here, my Lord, send me." So that's our duty and that's our job. And so I'm thankful for the opportunity to do that. The goal, long term, is for me to be on the field ministering alongside a missionary family, missionary couple, and aid them in the church planting process. You know, there's a lot that goes on. I kind of sat before the service and watched as things got ready, and there's a lot that goes on in a church just on Sunday, but even behind the scenes. Those things that happen throughout the week that we need folks that are going to come alongside and help to maintain the workings of a church so that we can minister to people in our community. And so that's what I'm asking the Lord to help me to do for these folks. Many people ask, where are you going to be? So I'm going to try to answer some simple questions this evening about the ministry that the Lord has called me to. First of all, the place I believe He's called me to is the city of Peterborough, England. Peterborough is situated about 2 hours north of London. It is in the state of Cambridgeshire. You'd probably be more familiar with Cambridge, the Cambridge University and that kind of thing, but Peterborough is a city of about 180,000 people. It's interesting to study a little bit about Peterborough. It is one of the fastest growing cities in the country. There are multiple reasons for that. There's jobs coming into the city, so where the jobs are, the people will come. There's a large immigrant population. The highest population of immigrants are Polish. Unfortunately, I don't know Polish, and I often receive I'm the joke at the missions conferences because I don't have to go to language school. But there is a sense of using language in any sense, whatever the Lord has given us. And so we desire to reach out to those immigrants as well and hopefully teach them some English and those types of things. Often I get asked about the Muslim influence. There is a high concentration of Muslims in the country in general. Peterborough has its fair Muslim population, and we were able, even when I was there in June of last year, to cross paths with some of them, even as we were out knocking on doors, and so that is a open door of opportunity. I'm really asking the Lord to give me a burden for Muslim people. I think that as Americans, and I'm just speaking for myself, but I believe in talking to folks, this is the general idea. Sometimes we're just scared. And so when we're fearful of something, we avoid it. But those are souls that need to know the Lord as well. So it is our job to take the gospel to them. And those who will listen, we're willing to speak to anyone. And so we would want to ask the Lord to continue to burden our hearts as a ministry team. We're asking the Lord for that opportunity. I heard recently someone say that the loneliest person on the face of this earth is a Muslim woman. And she's cut off in many ways from lots of society and things because of their religious beliefs. And so I'm asking the Lord that even maybe we'd have some Muslim neighbors, or that we'd be able to come cross paths that way with someone, that I could reach out in a way that maybe someone else couldn't. And so we're praying about those things as well. So yes, there's definitely Muslim presence. You say, some people will ask, well, what about the terrorism and that kind of thing? I think in watching the news, we can run into that anywhere that we go. The safest place to be is in the center of the Lord's will. So if that's in England, then that's fine. We'll face those things just as we do here in our own country. The ministry that the Lord is taking me to is alongside a missionary couple, Jonathan and Natalie Vanden Hurk. Jonathan grew up in Tennessee, graduated from Crown College, and visited England on multiple occasions. On one such occasion, crossed paths with a young lady named Natalie in the city of Corby, and they were later married. She came back to the States. They raised their support as missionaries here on deputation and are now on the field in their first term of service, and they are pastoring a small group of believers at Calvary Baptist Church in the city of Peterborough. And I was able to cross paths with Jonathan and Natalie on my first survey trip, and we worked together in a camp for the week, and the Lord just kind of knit our hearts together. At that time, I had no clue that I'd be working with them. The Lord had other things going at that point, and as you know how life goes, there's a bend in the road, and you're not quite sure what's around the corner, but it's amazing that as the Lord takes us around that bend, He just kind of sheds light on exactly what we need to see at that point. And the Lord really impressed on my heart to contact the Vanden Hurks and to see if they would be willing to let me work alongside them. And they're just ecstatic about that. They're right now without any coworkers. The folks that were working with them have left the church and gone to start a new church within the country, which is a wonderful opportunity. And at Calvary in Peterborough there, we'll be working with the church there, and then with the church plant in Hartlepool as well. But it can get lonely in the ministry on the field, and so I'm excited to be able to be a help and encouragement and a blessing to the Vanden Hurks, and then to get involved in the church there and to help them in whatever way I can. And what are some of the ministries that you'd expect to see in a church in England? Many of them are very similar to what we would do here. We'd have worship services together, and of course to be involved in those as much as possible. We do a lot of door-to-door outreach. Get out in the city centers. Many more people walk and ride bikes than we do here in the States. So we have lots of opportunities out in the city center to go out and just pass out literature as for anybody who will take it. You can get rid of a lot of literature fast in a short period of time, and so that's exciting. Very few people, in my experience, in England would turn it down. Some would just ignore you, and that's fine. But most if not all of them will take it. And we have to believe that the Word of God is powerful, and we don't know when they'll pick that gospel leaflet up and read it. One specific situation that I recall from being in England, I was out in the city center with Pastor Jonathan and Natalie on a Saturday afternoon, and we said, okay, we're just going to stay until we run out of literature. And so the three of us were out there, and both of them kind of split forces and split up a team of Mormons. And so they were talking to two groups of Mormons, and so I'm just out. I'm just right and left, passing things out. Well, I'd had 3 or 4 people in a row just kind of, you watch them. They're walking towards you, and then all of a sudden they're going this way, And so I caught the eye of an older lady as she's walking down the sidewalk, and I kind of walked toward her, and she kept coming, and I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, could I give you this gospel leaflet?" And she said, "Oh, no," she said, "I don't need that. I belong to the Church of England." And so I said, "Okay, well, thank you so much for your time." And she said, she looked at me and she goes, "You're not from around here." I said, "No, ma'am, I'm not." She says, "Well, what are you doing here?" This is Peterborough. See, Peterborough is not a touristy area. It's just a normal, everyday English city. And so I began to share with her what I was doing there. I was helping in a church and ministering with the folks. And she just began to talk and found out she was 88 years old. And she began to tell me about her life as a young girl and going through the war and what she remembered about all of that. And I'm just soaking it in. She's talking to me, and she directed the conversation, to asking about my family, and we went back, exchanged some information back and forth. And then she asked me a question. I'm standing there thinking, I'm watching people pass me, and I've got all this literature in my hand, and I'm thinking, I really need to get these things out. But I was listening to the lady, and she looks at me, and she said, "What do you think?" And I thought, oh boy, what's she going to ask me, And she said, "What do you think about all this terrorism in the world?" See, the day before, there had been a terrorist attack in Tunisia, a place that a lot of British people go for vacation, and there had been a number of British citizens who had been killed on a beach there. And she just, from current events, was asking me, "Why do you think this is happening?" I'm so thankful that the Lord takes over at that point, because we could be political and all those types of things, but that's not. It was like Paul talks about a door of utterance that just opened up. And I just said, because the people in this world do not know the God of peace. They have no idea what real peace is all about, because the God of peace would take that hatred in their heart, and he would remove it and replace it with love. And I was able to share with her very briefly just a little bit of the gospel. The interesting thing is before we walked away, she said to me, "Could I have that piece of literature?" And I said, "Absolutely." She took it. And I don't know her name. I don't know where she lives or anything like that. But those are the types of conversations that the Lord gives opportunities. And it's incredible. I remember that. That's one of the times that I thank the Lord for the opportunity in England. But we have those opportunities here in the States, and it's our job, and it's our duty as believers to be ready with an answer and to be ready to give a response. I always like to share a little bit. I'm sure that at some point in your life, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, gone out and knocked on some doors. And that can be a very almost terrifying experience for people, to knock on a door, not knowing what's on the other side. Well, in England, we would have a ministry we call On the Doors. We go out on the doors. And this is one of two things that we would do: either knock on the door, wait for someone to answer the door and talk to them, or else we'd put literature through the mailbox, the letterbox in the door, and it goes directly into the house. That's completely legal in the UK. And so very great way for us to get the gospel into homes. We know it's in the home. And we don't know what happens to it on the other side of the door, but we know that it got into each home. And so we get together before we go out and pray together. And it's interesting because people say, well, England's just like the United States. So we pray for different things when we get ready to go out on the doors. When we get ready to go out on the doors in England, we pray that we keep all our fingers. Because when you stick that thing through the letterbox, sometimes there's dogs on the other side. And you literally have to stick your fingers into just this far into there. So I came back with all my fingertips, and I'm working on you got to stick it in there and pull it, retract really quickly so you keep I just stomp as I go up to the door, so the dog hopefully starts barking before, and so you're ready, with your quick release. But we've had some interesting situations like that, but it is, just a little difference in that sense. Some other things that ministries we get involved in there. Recently, this past fall, we started what the English folks would call a mums and tots group. And so one morning or two mornings a month, maybe Fridays, the ladies in the church would advertise and bring your kids in. It's kind of like a scheduled play date, I guess, and come to the church and they play games with the kids. Well, then the ladies of the church are talking to the moms that come and are able to minister to them that way and let them have a little break from the children and then have an opportunity to hear the gospel as well. The biggest thing that is on the hearts of the church at Calvary in Peterborough and on mine as I'm here is this Mission Northeast is what the church has entitled it. We sent a couple from the church, the Pavits, who helped the Vandenherks come alongside and begin pastoring the church there. The Pavits kind of were in the interim when there was no pastor at the church and were helping out at Calvary. So the Pavits have left Calvary now and are up in the city of Hartlepool. It's about 4 hours north up on the East Coast, and they are beginning a new church. They've been up there since September, I believe, of last year, and they are knocking on doors and street preaching and passing out literature and talking to folks and getting into rest homes and all kinds of things that they can do to get the name out there, and they'll Lord willing, start services in a new church in Calvary Baptist of Hartlepool in the spring of this year. And so we're praying that the Lord would save folks and bring them to the new church there. It's an exciting time to be in the Lord's work. Oftentimes I get you're going to England as a missionary. That must be a really hard place to minister. You know, I believe that if we are really seeking the Lord, we can minister wherever He places us. And so the hardness of a field, our country is hard. Have you tried to talk to somebody about the Lord lately? It's not an easy thing to do. And so it's not any magnificent thing that I would go to another country, but that the Lord would give us strength to do what we're supposed to do every day, and that we would speak to folks here in the States, and then as we have opportunity to, as we go to the field. A couple of just stories of things to kind of get you to understand a little bit of the culture that we're dealing with. You would think that England, being a Christian nation, I mean, England is the nation that sent Hudson Taylor to China. I've been reading one of Taylor's works recently, and I'm just amazed at the life that he lived. And that's the nation that I'm going to. That's in their history. Many of the folks that you would come to on the street and talk to them, they would have no idea who Hudson Taylor is. And I've seen this happen because there's tourist attractions. They would call them tourist attractions, but it's really pieces of history, Baptist history, church history, English history that's religious in nature. And we would go to them, and you'd almost even see the gospel printed right there. And people walk by it every day and have no clue it's even there. We talked to a lady in a charity shop one day talking about a church of a famous preacher just across the street. And Pastor Jonathan said, "We're here in the town visiting the church across the street." And she goes, "That's a church." And you know, it's really just sad to me that they're so unaware of the truth that's right in front of them. But on the flip side of things, we can use that right away. I mean, I just stood there, Pastor Jonathan told her, "Yeah, this is the church that, you know, Andrew Fuller pastored," and he went on and shared the gospel with her, left her with a gospel leaflet. It's like talking points all over the place. And so it's really incredible to be able to do those types of things. But I think one of the stories that Pastor Jonathan shared with me that just has gripped me is they started a youth ministry to work with the youth, and we're praying about starting a Sunday school to work with the younger kids as well. But the first night of the youth ministry, there were 3 teenagers who came from the neighborhood around the church. And they played some games, and they began to talk, and Pastor Jonathan talked about the 10 Commandments that night. And after this activity, he was talking to these 3 young people, and he said, "I'd never even heard of the 10 Commandments before." And so they were talking some more. Well, Pastor Jonathan and Natalie walked these young people to their homes, and on the way, they ran into another group of young people. And the 3 that had been at the activity knew this group standing around the sidewalk. And so they stood there and talked for a few minutes, and Pastor Jonathan invited them to the youth activity, to the church, to Sunday school, that kind of thing. And one of the kids piped up and said, "What's Sunday school?" And he answered them, and then another pipes up and says, "Well, what's the Bible?" And another one says, "Well, who's Jesus?" And these are teenagers who live in one of the greatest nations of sending missionaries throughout history, next to the United States in the current day, and they have no clue even who the Lord is and who the God who loves them and wants to save them. And so there's a wide open door of opportunity for us to share. I believe that the younger generation is one they are willing to listen because they're not receiving any fulfillment of anything from the Anglican Church. And the Church of England is doing nothing for them. The churches are empty. Many of them are only open a couple of times a month. And it's just really a sad commentary on the religious nature of the country. But people are seeking. And if we're not there to give them the truth, there's going to be a Mormon in the town center who will give them their truth, or a Jehovah's Witness, or a Muslim, or whomever. And so it's important that I get there so that I can be a part of sharing the gospel with those folks. Many folks ask me the goal of getting to the field. The goal is to be there. Every missionary says this, as soon as possible, right? But no, honestly, the goal that we're praying for, and my sending church is praying that I would raise the funds necessary, both monthly support and outfit and passage needs, by as early as the fall of this year, depending on what happens these next couple of months, as churches have business meetings and such, from the meetings I've had last year. So it's possible that I could reach the field as early as this fall. But from the beginning, I really have felt the Lord directing it, early 2017. I would be fine if we went early, because the only thing I have to do is hand the keys to my car to my dad, and no one wants a missionary's car after deputation anyway. So he can just take it and deal with it, and then I'm off, So I'm very excited about the opportunity to go, and I'm thankful that the Lord has provided a way to do that. And I would ask you, really, more than anything, that you would pray. That you would pray that the Lord would continue to give me meetings like this one, that he would continue to give me safety as I travel. Every once in a while I get somebody that asks me if I travel alone. I really don't. I have a little mouse in my pocket. No, it is just me in the car, and that's fine. You get a lot of time to spend with the Lord, honestly, and listening to sermons and good music, and so I really enjoy the time. It's really not a hardship. It gets tiring sometimes, but that's all right. We get tired doing a lot of things. But if you would just pray the Lord give safety as I travel, and that he would continue to raise the support. Obviously, finances, missionaries always talk about finances, but I am convinced that prayer support is that deputation is more about prayer support than it is financial support. Early on in deputation, seeing what the Lord did to get things going and the way that he provides, and I'm really sitting on the edge of my seat excited about this month, because I have some goals and things that I've been praying about, and I'm just excited to see what the Lord's going to do. But the finances, I stopped worrying about those a long time ago, because he always provides. He promises to do that, and so that's not something to be concerned about. And as the Lord directs folks to get involved in the ministry financially, that's wonderful. But if we don't have prayer supporters, there is no possible way that foreign missions will continue. And so I would just really encourage you to join with me in praying that the Lord would get me to the field, and that I would be able to be a great blessing and minister alongside the Vandenherks. If you are interested in following the ministry more closely, I have a Facebook page that you're more than welcome to get on and follow there. If you just like the page, you'll see all the updates. I have an electronic prayer letter sign up. I don't have a secretary that does all of my work for me. I always joke that missionary couples that are, you just put out this paper, and then magically these addresses get on your prayer letter list, and all. I don't have a secretary to do that. I got enough work to do. So if you'd like to sign up for my prayer letter, I have a way for you to do that on my iPad. It's very simple to do. I'll even type it in for you if you don't like to deal with the technology. That's fine. But an email goes out about once every 3 months, and so be happy to keep you updated that way. Please stop by the table, pick up a prayer card, and put it somewhere where you'd be reminded often to pray for me. A lot of people tell me they put my face on the refrigerator, and if that's where you go the most often, go for it. So I'd be more than happy to be a refrigerator ornament for you. But I appreciate the opportunity to share this evening the burden that the Lord has given me, and just thank you, Pastor, for the invitation, and I trust that I'll get to meet you at the table. If you have any questions, if I don't know the answer, then we can always look it up on Google, or no, I'll find it for you.